Hi everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to crochet this little girl's ballet cardigan. So this cardigan can be made in a number of different sizes, and for all of the information on how to make the different sizes, please see the description box below. So thank you very much for watching, and please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos. So to begin your cardigan, you want to start off by making a slip knot. So to do a slip knot, take your yarn and take your finger and wrap the yarn around your finger once and then twice. Then take the first loop and pull it over the second loop, and then take the second loop and pull it all the way over your finger. You then want to take your crochet hook, so take your hook, go in through this space and pull tight, and there you have a slip knot. So once you have your slip knot, we are now going to make our foundation chain, and for our foundation chain we are going to chain 53. So you want to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 53. So I have just finished making my foundation chain of 53, and we are now ready to move on to round 1 of our cardigan. So we are now on to round 1 of our cardigan. And to begin this round, what we're going to do is we are going to go into the second chain from the hook. So here is the first chain from the hook, and here is the second chain. So we're going to go into this chain and we're going to work 2 double crochets. So to do a double crochet, yarn over and go into the chain, the second chain from the hook. Yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the final 2 loops on your hook. So there we have 1 double crochet into that chain. So now yarn over and go down into the exact same one again and do a second one. So there we have 2 double crochets both into that chain. And now what we're going to do is we are going to do 1 double crochet into every single chain along our foundation chain. So into every single chain you want to do 1 double crochet. So yarn over and go into the next chain and do 1 double crochet. Then do 1 into the next, and 1 into the next one, and continue this all the way along, 1 into each chain. So I have just finished working that all the way along for round 1. So I have done 1 double crochet into each chain. So I have come to the very end and I have done 1 double crochet into this last stitch here, or into this last chain. And what we're going to do now is we are going to go back down into this last chain at the end, so the last one that you went into, and we're going to work a second double crochet. So yarn over and go down into this very last chain and do a second double crochet into this one. So there we have finished round 1, and you should find that you have 2 double crochets into the last stitch at the end here, and then 2 double crochets into the first stitch that we worked into. And now we are ready to move on to round 2. So we are now on to round 2, and to begin this round you want to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So now to begin this round, we're going to go down into the very first stitch here and work 2 double crochets both into this stitch. So you see this very first one here, we're going to yarn over and go down into this first one, and we're going to work 1 double crochet. and then yarn over and go back down into the same stitch again and work a second one. So there we have 2 double crochets both into the very first stitch. And now for the rest of round 2, we are going to do 1 double crochet into one stitch and then 2 double crochets both into the next one all the way along. So we're going to do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 all the way along for round 2. So yarn over and go down into the next stitch and work 1 double crochet, and then yarn over and go into the next stitch here and do 1 double crochet, and then go down into the same stitch again and do a second one. So there we have 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. So now we're going to go into the next stitch and do 1 double crochet. So now we're going to do 2 both into the next, 2 double crochets, and now do 1 into the next and 2 into the next, and continue this all the way along. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 for round 2. So I am coming to the end of round 2, so I have repeated that all the way along. So I did 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and you should find that at the end of the round you have 1 stitch left, so 1 stitch left at the end here, and into this final stitch we're going to do 2 double crochets. So yarn over and go down into this last stitch at the end, and make sure that you're not going into the chain 1, that you're going into the last stitch and do 1 double crochet, and then go down into the same stitch again and do a second double crochet. So there we have worked 2 double crochets both into that last stitch at the end. So now you should have 2 double crochets in either end. So we have 2 double crochets into the last stitch, just like we did 2 double crochets into the first stitch. And now we are ready to move on to round 3. So we're now on to round 3 of our cardigan, and to begin this round you want to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So now to begin this round we're going to go down into this very first stitch here and work 2 double crochets. So yarn over and go down into the very first stitch and work 2 double crochets both into this stitch like that. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to do 1 double crochet into every single stitch along. So you want to do 1 double crochet into every single stitch. So yarn over and go down into the next stitch and do 1 double crochet, and then do 1 into the next one and 1 into the next, and continue this all the way along. So I am just coming to the end of round 3, and I have 1 last stitch to work into. But into this stitch, instead of doing 1 double crochet, we are going to do 2 double crochets both into this stitch. So at the very end of this round, in the very last stitch, you want to do 2 double crochets. So go into this stitch and make sure that you're going into the double crochet and not the chain 1. So this little chain 1 here does not count as a stitch. So do 2 double crochets both into this one, And then just like the previous rounds, we now have 2 double crochets in either end of the round. So in the first stitch and the last stitch. And by doing this, we are going to get the crossover effect of the cardigan. So we have finished working that all the way along for round 3, and now we're moving on to round 4. So we are now on to round 4, and to begin this round you want to chain 1 and turn. And now round 4 is just the same thing as round 2. So what we're going to do is we are going to go down into this very first stitch here and work 2 double crochets. So go down into the very first stitch and do 2 double crochets, both into this one. And then just like round 2, what we're going to do is we are going to do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, all the way along for round 4. So yarn over and go down into the first stitch and do 1 double crochet. Then do 2 both into the next one. So there we have 1, 2. So now do 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochets both into the next one, and repeat this all the way along for this round. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm just coming to the end of round 4. So I have worked that all the way along, and I have done 2 double crochets into this last stitch here. And just like round 2, you should find that you have 1 last stitch left at the very end of the round. And into this last stitch, we are going to do 2 double crochets. So yarn over, go into the very last stitch, and do 2 double crochets both into this one. So there we have finished working that all the way along for round 4. So we have done rounds 1, 2, 3 and 4, and you can see we are starting to get the crossover effect. So the ends are coming out this way on both sides. And now we are ready to move on to round 5. So we are now on to round 5 of our cardigan. And for each of the next 3 rounds, so for rounds 5, 6 and 7, we are going to do the exact same thing. So in each of those rounds, what we're going to do is we are going to chain 1 and turn, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets into the very first stitch. So that is how we're going to start each of those 3 rounds. And then we're going to do 1 double crochet into every single stitch along the round. So 1 double crochet into each stitch. And then when you get to the very last stitch at the end of the round, we're going to do 2 double crochets both into that stitch. So we will have 2 double crochets at the start and end of every round, and then 1 double crochet into each stitch in between. So we're going to do that all the way along for round 5, then all the way along for round 6, and then all the way along for round 7. So we have 3 rounds of 1 double crochet into each stitch with 2 double crochets into the first and last stitch. So we're going to do that for 3 rounds. So to begin each of those rounds, chain 1 and turn, and the chain 1 never counts as a stitch. And then for each round, you want to go down into the very first stitch here and do 2 double crochets both into this one. And then you want to go into the next stitch and do 1 double crochet, then do 1 into the next, 1 into the next, and continue this all the way along until you get to the very end, and then do 2 double crochets into this very last stitch at the end here, and then chain 1 and turn, repeat that all the way along for round 6, chain 1 and turn, and repeat that all the way along for round 7. So do that for 3 rounds. So I have finished working those 3 rounds, so I have come to the end of round 7, and this is what you should have. So I have worked 2 double crochets both into this very last stitch at the end here, and at the end of this round, at the end of round 7, you should have 133 double crochets across. So you should have 133 double crochets, and I would recommend that you go back and just double check that you do have that number, as next round, round 8, is a really important round and you need to have the right number of stitches across. So just go back and check that you have 133, and if you do, we are ready to move on to round 8. So we are now on to round 8, and in this round we are going to be adding in the shape of our cardigan. So we're going to be taking our big loop which we have here and turning it into a cardigan shape. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to work along a certain number of stitches for the first half of the front of the cardigan. We're then going to skip a number of stitches for the first armhole. Then we're going to work along a certain number of stitches for the back, skip another number of stitches for the next armhole, and then work along another number of stitches for the other half of the front. And that is how we're going to add in the shape in round 8. So to begin this round, you want to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And now to begin this round, we're going to go down into this very first stitch here and work 2 double crochets. So work 2 double crochets both into this first one. So like that. And now we're going to work 18 double crochets, or 1 double crochet into each of the next 18 stitches, and this is going to make the first half of the front. So yarn over and go into the next stitch and do 1 double crochet, then do 1 into the next one, and do this 18 times. So there I have those 18 double crochets. So we have 2 double crochets into the first stitch and then 18 double crochets. So there we have the first half of the front of the cardigan completed, and now we're moving on to the first armhole. And for this armhole we are simply going to skip 27 stitches. So you want to count 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up to 27. So here is my 27th stitch, and we are going to skip that one and then move on to the next stitch here. So this would be the 28th one along, and into this stitch we're going to do a double crochet. So count to 27, skip the 27th stitch, and then into the next one work 1 double crochet. So yarn over, go into the stitch, kind of pull your work together like this and work a double crochet. And then I would recommend that you just quickly go back and double check that you did skip 27 stitches. And now we are moving on to the back. So we are now moving on to the back of our cardigan. And the back of our cardigan is 40 double crochets long. So we need to do 40 double crochets. So this double crochet that we just did here counts as the first one of the back. So there we have 1. So now I'm going to do 1 into the next stitch, and then 1 into the next one, and keep doing this all the way along until you have 40. So I have finished working those 40 double crochets for the back, and now we are moving on to the next armhole. And for this armhole, we're going to do the exact same thing as the last one. We're just going to skip 27 stitches. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 27. So here is my 27th stitch, and we're going to skip this one and go into the next stitch. So this would be the 28th one along. So yarn over, go into this stitch and work a double crochet. And then just go back and check that you skipped the right number of stitches for the armhole. And if you have, then we are ready to move on to the other half of the front. So for this half of the front, you just want to work 1 double crochet into the rest of the stitches along. So we have done 1 double crochet here. So we're going to go all the way along and do 1 double crochet into each stitch. So the rest of the stitches. So I'm just coming to the end of the round. So I have done 1 double crochet into each of these stitches, and then I have one last stitch to go into at the end. So you want to stop right before the very last stitch, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets both into this stitch. So go into the stitch and do 2 double crochets both into the last one. And for this half of the front, you should have 2 double crochets into the last stitch and then 19 double crochets. So there we have finished round 8, and we have added in the shape of our cardigan. So if you have a look at the cardigan here, you should see that we have 2 armholes, and then we have a back and a front. And we also have the crossover effect starting to form. So you can see the sides are coming down like this. And with each round that we do, this will get further and further down and they will start to cross over. So now we're ready to move on to round 9. So we are now on to round 9. And to begin this round, you want to chain 1 and turn. And this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So now to begin this round, we're going to go down into the very first stitch here and do 2 double crochets both into the first stitch. So we're doing 2 both into the very first one here. And now we're just going to do 1 double crochet into every single stitch along. So go into the next stitch and do 1 double crochet, and then do 1 into the next one, and 1 into the next, and continue this all the way along. And when you get to the armholes, you just want to go straight across. So we are done with the armholes. We have these little cap sleeves and these are finished. So we're just going to go straight along, doing 1 double crochet into each stitch. So I'm just coming to the end of round 9. So I have done 1 double crochet into each stitch and then into the very last stitch at the end of the round. So this final stitch here, you want to do 2 double crochets. So go into the stitch and do 2 double crochets both into this one, like that. So there we have completed round 9 and we're ready to move on to the next round. So we are now on to round 10 of our cardigan, and for the rest of our cardigan, so for the rest of the length, we are just going to repeat round 9, so the round that we just did, again and again and again. So you can repeat that round as many times as you like, but just repeat it until you feel that your cardigan is long enough. So for each round, you are just repeating round 9. So you chain 1 and turn, do 2 double crochets both into the first stitch, then do 1 double crochet into each stitch around and finish off by doing 2 double crochets both into the last one. So just keep repeating that round. So for this cardigan here, I repeated round 9. This one has worked in the exact same way, and I did 6 repeats. So I didn't want my cardigan to be very long, as you would have a leotard or a tutu underneath this, so I wanted it to be kind of cropped. So I just did 6 rounds, but you could do 4 rounds or you could do 8 rounds. It's completely up to you, and the bigger size that you are doing, the more repeats you may want. And with each round that you do, by doing 2 double crochets into the first and last stitch, you are getting this crossover effect. So this will come out this way and this side comes down this way, and they cross over, and that will get more and more with each round you do. And then once you have finished repeating round 9 and you have your cardigan to the length that you want it, you can now make your ties. So for my ties, all I did was, once I had my cardigan to the right length, I chained 60. So I chained 60 for my ties, but you can chain as much as you want, and the bigger size you are doing, the more you may want to chain. So if you were doing this for a baby, you may only want to chain 50, but if you're doing it for a child which is a little bit older, you may want to chain 65 or 70. And then once I had my chain, I then worked 1/2 double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then I worked 1/2 double crochets all the way down, so 1/2 double crochet into each chain, and then when I got to the very end, I just did a slip stitch into the top up here and fastened off, and that gave me one of my ties. And then for the other side, I attached my yarn into the very corner and then chained the same number, and then did the same thing. I did 1/2 double crochets all the way down and worked a slip stitch into the top, and you can then weave all of your ends into the inside of your cardigan. So using a yarn needle, weave all of your ends nice and securely into the inside. And then the reason I did my ties with 1/2 double crochets and not double crochets is so that you can then use the spaces in between the stitches as holes to feed the ties through. So when you look at a ballet cardigan, you will often find that they have a hole in one of the sides, and that is so that when you have the crossover, one of the ties can come through the hole like this, and then they can tie around the back. But if you do your ties in 1/2 double crochets, they are shorter than the double crochets, and so the spaces in between the stitches can be used as a hole. So cross your cardigan over like this, and the side that comes underneath, thread that through a space between the stitches on the opposite side. So thread the tie through, and then just fold this one over, and then around the back you can tie these. So you can tie these in a pretty little bow. So work the length of your cardigan and then add some ties if you want. So add 1/2 double crochet ties, and we have finished. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it easy to follow. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos. And I also have a Twitter account, which I will leave a link to in the description box below this video. So if you want to see updates and photos, you can go and follow me on there. And I would also love to see photos of your crochet work. And I have also recently made some of my most popular patterns available as written patterns. So I will have a link to where you can find them in the description box below this video as well, if you are interested. And thanks again for watching.